Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Lawrence Conley and Liam Carrigan to talk all things Celtic. We are, of course, in the midst of an international break. Some people love it, some people loathe it, and some people organise centenary games against the Rock. Guys, what do you reckon of the latest announcement that Neil Lennon will be playing for Celtic on Sunday down at James McGrory Park? Liam, I'll ask you first.
Well, Neil Lennon has always been a hero of mine, and it's going to be great for him to come back and to be, to feel good about being amongst Celtic people once again. Things ended badly, and it happens, but it's really good to see him. Going to see him back in the hoops and back amongst the support, and hopefully he gets I'm sure he will get the reception that a hero like him absolutely deserves.
Yeah, this is the thing. I think, obviously, Neil Lennon, Lawrence, when you think about his playing career, his managerial career up to the pandemic, is and was an absolute legend at Celtic. And then there was that difficult period where obviously there was criticism flying around, not just for him, but for the players and the club, and it was a frustrating time. But slowly but surely you hope that Neil Lennon starts getting back into the fold, and I'm delighted, and I will be delighted to see him wearing a special commemorative jersey, actually, for Celtic, which will not be revealed or released to anybody until the players unveil them underneath their rain jackets, although hopefully they won't need the rain jackets, Lawrence. It's going to be great to see Lennon in action, isn't it?
Mate, for me, he never left the fold. I'm a big fan of Lenny. I've got a match-worn top framed up at hanging my hallway alongside my Sutton Larson oil painting. But yeah, absolute legend. Treble as player and manager. If anyone was going to lose, the 10 in a row, we didn't have a divine right to win it. And I think, some of the reaction was way over the top towards him during that. It was almost as if people thought, well, we've got a divine right to win this, and I don't think we did. It was a season that didn't go well for a number of reasons. Quite a few challenges in it, but yeah, Lenny, absolutely outstanding self, and what he's went through in his time in Scotland, attacked in the street, on the football park, bullets and bombs in the post. He suffered a lot for the club, and for me, never left the fold, mate.
No, never left the fold. I think I was speaking to Jackie McNamara. There you go. There's another big, massive name drop. Earlier on this season, Liam, and he was talking about the difficulties that a manager must have under the circumstances where you can't really go through the players. And what I mean by that is not just shouting and screaming and hairdryer treatment, but I think it would have been a different atmosphere in the pandemic when you're bringing players in, particularly from abroad, who are not being able to integrate themselves into the culture of the country or into the actual team, and spend time together away from the park, because obviously that's what was going on. And Jackie felt that managers would have been trying to deploy a different approach because they would have been concerned about how's this going to affect the player a wee bit more than normal. He said so it would have been a very unnatural Neil Lennon in that particular season. And yeah, great to see him back in the fold. And by the way, there's a few other announcements to come this week. Liam, will you be watching it on the live stream?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. I will. Yeah. Thankfully, it doesn't clash with the rugby. So, yep, I'll definitely be watching it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. We'll be doing a wee dry run tomorrow just to obviously test all the levels and all that kind of stuff. And really looking forward to putting it out. We're going to have a very special commentary team, an Acsom commentary team, which I'm not part of, by the way. Two of the boys will be on duty on Sunday. Really looking forward to it. Mikey boy, great to hear from you. Hail, hail, Axomers. Quite quiet few days. Yeah, I could say that again. Let's hope the Brendan Rodgers rebuild continues on to Hearts game and we push further ahead. Hope Maeda is okay. Two very important players for us. I'll use this as an opportunity, Liam, to come straight to you about Daizen Maeda and also, obviously, the international break, Japan's upcoming games. What is the story with Maeda? I mean, we've got 13 Celts on international duty. Two of them are Hatti and Kyogo, but Maeda has picked up a knock, hasn't he?
From what I understand, it's a precautionary measure that he's not travelling because the games that Japan are playing are not particularly important. They're games that they're expected to win and win comfortably. So it's not really... You notice that actually a lot of the European players for Japan tend not to get called up until the latter stages of qualifying for World Cups or Asian Cups, whatever, because outside of like Korea, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Australia, with the greatest of respect, the rest of Asia is basically cannon fodder for Japan. So it's not really a big issue most of the time. And yeah, I think that if Maeda had to play, if they were playing Argentina in a World Cup group game next week, I think he would probably still make the bench. But Moriyasu always errs on the side of caution, and he's also acutely aware that he doesn't want to upset the European clubs by getting their players injured when they're on duty. So I think it's the right call just to say to Daizen, look, sit this one out, mate. We'll deal with it without you.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the biggest concern, isn't it, Lawrence? When you look at the list of players we've got on international duty, I'm looking at Carter Vickers. On the one hand, you're looking at guys like him. You're looking at Liam Scales. You're thinking, oh, it's great that you're getting this international experience. But on the other hand, you're just praying that nobody gets injured.
Yeah, that's it. Just come back fit. No injuries. I think we've had more than enough this season. Especially in defence, big C series probably. The worry is not a lot of football in those legs and he's away again and you're like, surely the manager can maybe have looked at that and went, the boy's not match fit, I'll maybe leave him this time. But listen, as long as they all come back fit, international experience, I don't really care about international football, to be honest, mate. So it's...
No interest? Yeah. No interest?
No.
I mean, where I am on international football, and I've said this before, I remember... it was exciting growing up, Liam. I was very, very excited by the... I do recall Mexico 86. I recall it because the wee mascot, PK, was really cool with the Mexican hat and all that, right? But I can't remember being that engaged in the games. Obviously, I've watched it back and I know what happened. But Euro 88 was what really, really got me as a wee fan. And people might call me something different from that. But obviously I was supporting Ireland and it was just brilliant. I was hooked by the whole Jack Charlton team and, looking at guys like Ray Houghton and Ronnie Whelan and all these boys, So that was the tournament. And from there, probably up to about the 98 World Cup, I was right into the big tournaments and international football. But I just think that probably Scotland's participation or lack of made me less interested in the competitions. But obviously, when they're in there, if and when they're in there, I would support my nation as well as Ireland as well. But I don't know, is it a modern thing, Liam? The interest in international football maybe isn't as big as the interest in Champions League football, let's just say.
Well, I mean, taking Japan as an example, right? Japan is basically the inverse of Scotland. Japan has been to every World Cup since the last time Scotland qualified, right? Which, was 1998. And for every time they qualify and every time they get to World Cup, they've still never got beyond the last 16, but they do look as if they're incrementally getting stronger with each tournament. Whereas Scotland, until recently, have looked as if they're drifting further and further away from a World Cup with each passing qualifying campaign. And I do think that the idea of, oh God, we're just gonna as soon as we play a decent team, we're gonna get gubbed, and it doesn't breed an enthusiasm. Whereas in Japan, they genuinely believe that whoever they play, they've got a fighting chance, and some of the teams they've beaten recently proves that. Japan can, on their day, give anybody a game, and I mean anybody. And it's not because they've got the best players in the world. They've got a couple of really world-class players. But, they're not. They're probably not even in the world top 10, if you're being honest. But I'd fancy them to give anybody a game. Whereas Scotland, they are good enough to be in the top 32 in the world. So technically you think they should be at the World Cup. I know it's not that simple, but, but we're not. And it's And the thing is, with the way FIFA does their seedings, every time you don't qualify, it becomes harder to qualify because you get bumped down the seedings for the next round. We used to be a pot 2 team, and now what are we, pot 3? If we're lucky. You've got to get past at least 2 teams that are better than you now to get to the World Cup, and that's just not a. And of course, Japan has the advantage there as well, in that since they've established themselves as, the J League came up in '93 and they qualified for the first World Cup in '98. That's no coincidence. 5 years of having a professional league and you're at a World Cup, right? And a league which from day one has been far better managed than Scottish League ever has. And, you get that professional infrastructure, and within 5 years, you're at a World Cup. And as I said before, in Asia, there isn't that much of a challenge once you get yourself established. The Chinese have been trying for 20 years to get it, and they still haven't got it, that you can't qualify for World Cup by importing loads of foreigners.
Yeah.
Because can't play for you.
This is the thing. I mean, the interesting discussion that we've had previously, Liam, around Japanese football was after. It was the post-Nakamura. It was that period post-Nakamura until Ange came where we didn't tap into the market again. And I think it was a massive own goal for Celtic. I thought that, at that point we realised what we had with Nakamura. And surely in that period, what are we talking here? Is it 2006 to 2021? Is that the period?
2009 or 2010, I believe, was when Nakamura left.
Then we had Mizuno, didn't we?
Aye.
Yeah,
Mizuno left around about the same time as Naka, if I remember right.
So from that period to the next influx, there must have been some sensational players. I mean, are there any in your mind that you just thought to yourself, they would have fitted so well in a particular Celtic side, Liam?
Well, I'll just throw some names at you, right? Yuta Nagatomo, who went on to play for Inter Milan and Galatasaray, amongst others. When he first moved to Europe, I believe it was for about £3 million. Keisuke Honda went on to play for AC Milan. Similar story. First move into Europe was, a price that Celtic could well have afforded. Shinji Kagawa, Dortmund and then Man United. But, didn't cost a fortune when Dortmund took a chance on him and brought him over. There's a very, very good Japanese player called Junya Ito. And I believe he's playing either in Spain or Belgium now. 29 now, going on 30. Probably too old now to make a move to Celtic, but what a player he is. And again, if we'd have been on the case 4 or 5 years ago, we could have got him for comparative pennies,
All they should have done back then, Liam, is obviously had you as the chief scout over in Japan. You could have been sending the scout reports back. Double denim. We're not ignoring the big world story, and I know that it's raging on in the comments section. And the Celtic supporters, politics is something that's been key to the club's very existence from day one. It wouldn't be right to ignore that. And obviously, I think also the fact that there has been a statement in relation to a banner, and there has been players and ex-players commenting on it, that obviously it's something that we'll have a chat about. But at the same time, it's very difficult, I think, whereby you're going to oppose opinion either way. I've seen St. Pauli falling out with Glasgow St. Pauli fans and all this kind of stuff. So it's very difficult in that respect. However, I think it's important that your state of mind when it comes to politics is clear and there's clarity in that. So it's something that we will talk about, but obviously a lot of people might actually come on to the show to talk about football. And I mean, all you have to do is go into social media and it is awash with what is going on at this moment in time. And it's been ongoing really for the entirety of my life. I remember, news footage as a kid, and how on earth would I have known what the Gaza Strip was and all that as a bairn? It's something that's been reported on since I was a child. It's been ongoing for as long as that. I mean, the occupation of Palestine and 75 years as an oppressed people, and that is where Celtic as a fan base obviously voiced their support, and that has come in for some criticism, Lawrence. So you've seen the criticism, and obviously the club have decided to make a statement on it. And I think the interesting thing about the statement is, I don't think you can possibly say that politics gets left at the door when you go to a football game. Now, there'll be people in the comments section who go to the football and they're not interested in all the politics. And that's fine. Everybody has their own opinion on it, Lawrence. But I don't think the club can say that there's no politics in football, because there is. And there always has been. And it's the very birthright of the club, politics.
Yeah, you go back to Michael Davitt, or even I think Greek word is for the good of the people or something, from politics. So yeah, Celtic's certainly set up for the good of the people. So it's integral. But I think they're worried about certain sections being precluded. You've still got to remember it's club open to all, or should be. Thinking one way shouldn't ban you from following the club, or you shouldn't feel you don't belong. I think that's what they're trying to say, But it's going to be a very, I suppose, long-running divisive issue.
Yeah,
amongst not just the Celtic sport, but I suppose wider sport in Scotland and people having their views on the different parties involved. I'm not too sure about we're solving it inside Celtic Park. No,
you're not solving it within Celtic Park. I think there's a hypocrisy, though, unfortunately, in football, whereby it's you can talk about politics when the authorities deem it necessary, Liam, but when they're not happy with any of the messages, then there's a blanket ban on the talk of politics within football, and I think that's wrong.
Well, people have made the comparison. It's okay to wave a Ukraine flag, but it's not okay to wave a Palestinian flag. And I do think that at a surface level, that is an adequate comparison. The problem is that with the Ukraine situation, now again, this is just my opinion, but it's much more obvious who the enemy is, right? Everybody agrees Russia invaded them, it was wrong, and they deserve to be punished for that. Whereas,
Liam, I thought you were going to say Rangers are the enemy there.
Well, they are, but that goes without saying.
That's omnipresent.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember the good old days when the Gaza Strip was just something my Rangers support and pal wore. But anyway,
did they have peroxide blonde hair, Liam? Remember that? That was all the rage as well.
Yeah. But I personally am very conflicted about this current situation. The suffering of the Palestinian people is well documented, and it's horrible, and it should not be happening. But tomorrow I've got to sit down and record a local radio show with a good mate of mine who's from Jerusalem. And right now he is absolutely terrified for his friends and family's safety. And whatever your politics, no human being should have to live in fear like that. And so I am politically sympathetic to the Palestinians, but I do not agree with how Hamas are going about this right now. And I think that Celtic should have simply said, we don't share the views of that banner, and we stand behind our players regardless of what country they're from. Leave it at that. There was no need to go into politics. Yeah. That was the problem. Politics amongst the fans is fine. You can agree, you can disagree. People might think I'm an idiot for just expressing a semblance of support for Israel there. The truth is, I just want both of them to settle their differences peacefully. But, that's unlikely to happen. And the upshot of it all is that, there's going to be political action at football stadiums, because where else are you going to have tens of thousands of people there, plus however many millions are watching around the world, as a platform? Football has always been a platform.
It's always been a platform, absolutely. And I think that the situation that we're in at the moment, obviously having an Israeli player on the books as well, will be playing on the club's mind. So I did expect a statement. I just didn't think that that particular statement hit the spot. But it's one of these things that's going to rage on. We're going to be talking about a whole number of things on this particular show, and we're not going to avoid the big subjects. And it is part of Celtic Football Club. There is no avoiding that, and I don't think the club should avoid it either. Now, in relation to some of the international players who are out there getting their international experience, Carter Vickers has already been mentioned as being part of the American squad. Lawrence is back in the fold. He came back against Lazio, and obviously there were issues, let's say, created in 2019 with banners that Celtic fans flew against Lazio. I don't think anybody was in any disagreement with those in the comment section, although let us know if you were. But Carter Vickers, he comes back in against Lazio and he uncharacteristically makes a mistake. It was a very cruel defeat against the Italians. And then we see him starting the game at the weekend, and I've just called him the rock. That's what he is. He's the rock on which we can build something. And for the last 2 years, we've seen him building it with Starfelt. I made the suggestion yesterday, never thought I would, but I made the suggestion yesterday that he might build something similar with Liam Scales. What's your take on it?
Might do, mate. I think the jury's still out. Scales, he's probably the most improved player.
The jury's out on Scales?
Yeah, just now I think he's the most improved player so far. But how many games have we had that stood out? There's a few games you could say, cost us a goal there. Especially in Motherwell one, but he's definitely vastly improved. Rodgers is rating him. There's potential there. But it's the same Liam Scales that, I think Aberdeen were £50,000 short of buying. I don't think he'll be going to Aberdeen in January now, even if they come up with extra money for him.
No chance.
But is it going to be the long-term answer? At centre-half, I think it's there's potential there. Still remains to be seen. What do you do with your other signings? Rocky looked good when he was in. Lagerbielke's there. I would say Phillips is, he'll go back to Liverpool, won't he? He certainly, he's no longer surplus to requirements now. It's where he's got to, isn't it? Just now, the way he's playing, he's one of the first names in the team sheet for Scottish football. Is he going to get to the level for Champions League? Because that's really where we want to be performing. Yeah, he's doing it in the Premier League, but we need to see him do it in the Champions League. And that was for a lot of players, just not Liam Scales. Liam Scales isn't alone in that. We need our players to be performing at the highest level. And Carter Vickers, uncharacteristic mistake, yeah, but he's rusty, but it's a last-minute injury time. Just play that ball down to their corner flag, get them turned, give them the problem. Don't be driven. Because the lines were pushed up. If you lost the ball there, we knew we were in trouble. And it was just a chance you didn't need to take so late in the game that if there was a mistake, there's a good chance that Lazio will get a shot on target. Yeah, and yet, they end up getting a goal. So, yeah, Scales has got potential, mate. Is it going to be the answer for us in Europe? I don't know, mate. It still remains to be seen. We've still got a few games left in Europe. We have a lot to do.
Yeah, we do.
A lot to do, mate.
I'm going to come at you, Liam, because Lawrence is quite right in what he says. We've spent money. We brought in centre halves. We knew we had to strengthen. We lost Starfelt, who had been a first pick for 2 years. We bring in Mike Nawrocki. Unfortunately, he gets injured. I think Lagerbielke came in. He looked like he was back up. He's on international duty with Sweden right now as well. Nawrocki has played 3 games for Celtic, and I thought he looked as though he could be, develop into a decent centre half for Celtic. He was clearly the guy that was brought in to replace Starfelt. And then you've got the emergency signing of Nat Phillips. And as it stands, but we know football could throw a few grenades in there between now and January. As it stands, yeah, you wouldn't be averse to him going back to Liverpool. However, Scales, Lawrence thinks the jury's out on Scales, and in particular in Europe. What's your take on it, Liam?
I'm still weighing up an answer on Scales. Sorry, had to do it. No, the thing is that it'll be interesting to see how he is now that Carter Vickers is back, because the jury was out on Starfelt for the first couple of months he was here as well. Among some people, the jury stayed out until he left, but it was clear that working alongside Carter Vickers made him a better player. Can Scales show the same incremental improvement He's already come on leaps and bounds for what I thought he was capable of at the start of the season. When I went on record and said he wasn't Celtic class, I am prepared to walk that back now. I think he's definitely good enough for us, at least domestically. And Champions League, there is still the potential for him to grow into that. And I think working alongside Carter Vickers is key to that. Ask me again in 10 games whether or not I think he's up to it in Europe, because I think that you'll see him hopefully get better through playing alongside Carter Vickers, because that's certainly what happened with Starfelt.
It did, and we've also seen it in a previous team with Virgil van Dijk, right? Not comparing Carter Vickers to Van Dijk, two completely different styles of player, and different ceilings, I think, as well. But what tended to happen is if you played alongside, and I'm not saying anybody would look good, Liam, because obviously I couldn't look good playing alongside Carter Vickers or Van Dijk, but you put a player in there, and it was James French that made the point last week. He's looking forward to him playing a number of games alongside Carter Vickers to see how that improves Scales' game. The jury's out, according to Lawrence. What is it? You're still weighing it up, apparently, Liam. You're still weighing it up. And,
I think he's domestically good enough. I think Europe is still a question.
There's been a lot of comparisons about the return, the resurrection of Scales being similar to that of Ralston, and that, written off largely as Celtic players, but then they've become important parts of the squad. Ralston's not a first pick, but he's an important part of the squad. You can see why he's been given the extended contract by Brendan Rodgers. Is Scales, do you think, Lawrence, going to be that type of player? Someone who we won't be in a hurry to try and get out of the club because you know what he can do. Maybe when Nawrocki comes back to full fitness, perhaps he is the long-term option. But Scales is going to be there, and you're going to trust him if he comes in and plays a wee bit like Ralston.
So we should also kind of mention Stephen Welsh is still there to come back, centre half. I think Tony's slightly different in that he's club trained. What we're looking at, obviously it's James's testimonial year. We need 4 club trained and 4 league trained players for Europe. And Scales isn't going to fall into that. That's going to be one of your non-club or league trained players. Listen, I think he's good enough for the SPL. Say that. He's the most improved player this season, probably. But it's, can he do it in Europe? Can he get?
Has he done it? Has he done it so far in the 2 games?
To persuade me that he's the answer in Europe, that he's going to be a player that will get us to the last 16, or part of the team will get us to the last 16. Not yet. But then again, I've said before, Strachan said he got the last 16 with Caldwell and McManus. Is he centre half pair? So it's very much about that partnership. And you've touched on it. If he can establish that with Carter Vickers, it could be. But from what I've seen so far in the 2 games, no, I wouldn't say that. I think in Europe that he's been dominant, or it's been strolling it. He's been okay, but I wouldn't say any more in Europe. He's certainly
not let us down this season in Europe.
He's not had a lot of games though, we're talking 2 games. And
he's not let us down in those 2 games, has he? He's done really well in those 2 games. Particularly against Feyenoord, where we were under the cosh for obvious reasons. I think he came through that test really, really well. And
he's the boy that was too deep, played the boy on side, boy runs through and Hart brings him down, gets sent off. So his game wasn't without fault against Feyenoord, was it?
I think you've been harsh.
Well, just say he's a boy that played him on side, so it wasn't without fault.
Right. So of the 2 games, no, but I don't think we're expecting Maldini-esque performances from Scales or anybody else in the team. But I think Scales, if you're pinpointing one occasion where he's played somebody on side, I think Carter Vickers' failings over the 2 games are worse. He's lost the ball, and we lost a goal.
Yeah, he's lost the ball. Whether he should definitely just get rid of that, played it down to corner flag, gave them the problem. It's the last minute injury time. You're thinking, what are you doing trying to dribble it out there? Especially when the lines were pushed up so tight. If you lose the ball there, you're in trouble, which it proved to be. But if you're going to say after 2 games, yes, Scales is the answer in Europe, I'm not persuaded.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is he's not done anything wrong in Europe. He's done well in Europe so far in the 2 games.
Done anything wrong? I'm saying, well, there's an example of something done wrong.
All right, you could pick any Celtic player over the 2 games, and there's going to be things, every single one of them done wrong, Lawrence. What I'm saying about Scales, in relation to Scales,
not anything wrong. I would say, well, there's
but you're splitting hairs there, I think. Liam Scales has contributed really well to those two games. To the point that Brendan Rodgers has come out and says it's his biggest surprise in his coaching career. Extensive coaching career. All the guys he's coached, Liam Scales is the one. He's got an international call-up for Ireland. And you are undecided, Lawrence, on the fella.
I'm not persuaded that he's going to be the long-term answer off the back of his 2 European performances. Said I think he's the most improved player at Celtic Park. Off these 2 performances, do I think he's going to be the long-term answer? He'll be part of a centre-half partnership that takes us into the last 16? No.
I'd love anybody to take us into the last 16, Lawrence. But you've said it wasn't Maldini-esque. You should have said Scale-Archie-esque. Because that was the 1990 World Cup. And by the way,
the mascot, mate.
Chow, yeah, I've got the bag out there, remember? I've got the Italian bag out there.
86 is your first
it's my first memory, yeah. Remember, I'm a lot younger than you, though.
I can't remember the mascot. 82 was Chico, though.
Right, so what one do you remember? 78?
78? Oh, country was going mental, mate.
You remember 78, right? So who was the mascot? Let us know in the comments.
I don't know the 78 mascot,
Before my time.
If you go to the Asda and get your picture taken, you know, one of those cutouts with Alan McLeod standing there and your head through, you're in the Scotland team and stuff. Country was going mental, 78.
I can't wait for the Celtic Superstore to have a Liam Scales one, and I'm hoping that you go and get your picture taken with him, Lawrence. Sander Mac, afternoon from a Dreich, Fort William. Yeah, it is a wee bit Dreich, isn't it? And by the way, that game, we took a walk around Celtic Park, as we do on a Monday. Lawrence, you're going to have to join me one of these weeks on a Monday morning. Sorry?
I'll bring the dog.
Bring Big Marley. Yes. and we'll try and do it on a day where Scales is coming in, and I can introduce you to him and tell him that you don't think he's good enough. Double denim.
That's not what I'm saying, I said I'm not persuaded.
I'm bamming you up.
He's the answer in Europe.
I'm bamming you up.
He's decent, you know, he would do it in the Premier League.
Right,
so
okay.
I think he's the most improved player in the team. What I'm saying is I'm not convinced he's the answer. But
He's got the Tony Ralston of the Year award, and that's good enough so far. Double denim, hope we get through the international break with our players relatively unscathed. That's all you can ask for, really. We look like we might have a stable team for the first time in a while, so it'd be good to keep that going. Absolutely, and I think that is what is key, and I think getting that partnership. I said yesterday that it wasn't so much Starfelt, who I rated, by the way. I did rate him. It was more the partnership I was disappointed in breaking up. I think that if you've got a central defensive partnership, it's key to your success. It really is. And it was something that Mowbray could never get his head round at Celtic, and ultimately he failed. And I think if you can't get that right in your team, you're going to fail. Is Scales going to be that guy alongside Carter Vickers? By the way, I'm not convinced he is, Lawrence. I'm just throwing that back at you. I don't think long term he will be. I think Norowski came to the club for that, and I think once he gets up to full speed, he will be the guy that partners Carter Vickers. But in the meantime, Scales is punching and punching and punching, and the more he does that, the more it becomes normal that he is a guy we can rely on. And you know what? If he's a squad player who's on the bench and he makes 20 to 30 appearances a season, I think it's better than most of us kind of expected from him at the beginning of the season. Mikey boy, P.S. How incredible is Scales? Sorry, Lawrence, this one's for you. Making a lot of us, including myself, eat our words. Amazing mental character from the young man. Long may it continue. Who was the last player, Liam, who proved you wrong in a Celtic jersey? Somebody you'd written off, and he came back and he became a member of the team, a very valued member of the team.
Tony Ralston's too easy to say, so I'm trying to think of one before that. Henrik Larsson sold the winning goal on his debut, so there's one for you.
Imagine our post-match, honestly. What we should probably do, we should probably do retro post-match bulletins. Watch the games as live and react. I know it's going to be difficult knowing that he went on to be one of the best players of all time. However, would have been raging after that game.
Who's that Diddy with the dreadlocks?
I know. So a player that looked like he was completely out of the picture, but he came back. I mean, it's a difficult thing for a footballer to do at a club.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that Scott Brown did that. Everybody thought his legs were gone. He was finished, but then he came back. Mm-hmm. You know, took a different approach to his training, looked after himself a bit better, and ended up performing at the top level for a good few more years. James Forrest has he's been linked with a move away numerous times, and every time he comes back and proves us wrong. There are some players who do it consistently, because there's always that thing of, there are... Right, well, here's one for you, right? First season, he had an absolute nightmare. We're not going to become an absolute star for us. Stilian Petrov.
Good
right?
Good shout.
People forget that, he came in at a time when the team were all over the shop. I remember one game where he was played at left back, and...
Was that against St Johnstone, I think?
I think it was, aye. But, Stan's a guy that would walk into any team's midfield, in my opinion, absolute star, and won me a hell of a lot of money back when I had a season ticket, because I always took him for first goal.
He was brilliant at that. He put in such a shift. What about yourself, Lawrence? Isn't that, that normal for this to happen? A player that's obviously it can happen with a manager. Someone can get out of favour with a manager. The managerial shift happens and the new gaffer fancies the player. But you're right. I think Forrest and Brown have been written off so many times. They're like Michael Myers. They just keep coming back no matter what you do to them. But what other players do you think were written off, Lawrence, and they came back?
I think Martin O'Neill had written off Jackie, hadn't he? Initially when he came in.
He did, aye.
O'Neill and Jackie.
Yeah, for example.
Bobby Petter.
That's right, because he came under the John Barnes regime with Dalglish, but didn't really show it until O'Neill was in charge.
There were some players that had decent debuts. You thought they would do okay, like Barrickter looked okay in his debut.
Gary Gillespie looked good on his debut.
Yeah, 4 on, 4 off, big oil rig boy. Yeah, it was, Gillespie, what a signing, mate. Getting his outside centre-half from Liverpool,
I think, to be fair, I think the ones that have done it, of some of them in recent times have done it because of the loan that they enjoyed. So Scales went to Aberdeen and he got the games and he's come back and he's performed really well. Ralston's loans didn't really work out for him. I think Callum McGregor was written off. I mean, no one really expected him to come back from Notts County and do what he's done. Ryan Christie, maybe written off Ryan Christie before he goes to the Dons. I don't think we wrote off Chris Ayer. That was like a development move for him. We all knew that's what it was. But Ryan Christie, I would say...
was written off. I think he was put out as development as well, wasn't he?
Remember, he was put out to Inverness first. We signed him and then put him right back out on loan to Inverness. And then it was the Aberdeen one, and I remember that game. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was at Murrayfield against Hearts.
Murrayfield against Hearts. The commander was in. Can't remember who got injured. He came on, but that's how he was in the team.
So McGregor's maybe an obvious one as well. I think a lot of people would have, not batted an eyelid had he gone to Carlisle, having not made a first-team appearance, and then he comes back after Notts County, playing with, what's his name, Jack Grealish, and he becomes an absolute legend for Celtic. So there you go. There's one for you. So Liam Scales, yes, some people are undecided. We'll come back to that. That's what it's all about. A wee bit of debate on the show on a Tuesday. We used to have Natasha Meikle on the show to referee ding-dongs between Lawrence and me. I'm not sure what the score was, Lawrence, but
Natasha's got it somewhere.
I'm sure she has. Ian McMonigal, thumbs up from Istanbul today. Never been to Turkey. The locals always happy to see a Celtic shirt here. Well, you enjoy the weather, Ian. Hopefully it's better than many of those in the comment section. And the urban culture says Scales has got justice at last. Yep, he's playing football. And as Lawrence quite rightly said, Stephen Welsh is another player who's signed a long-term deal, and the worst of lucks, he gets injured. And unfortunately, we have not seen him since he signed that deal. Now, plenty of other players to talk about. The Japanese internationalists. Let's just talk about them.
I just thought you were going to talk about Turnbull. Talk about players that haven't been seen.
Yeah, he's on the list.
Contract soon.
All right, we'll talk about him first then. We'll talk about Turnbull. Turnbull, for me, is a player, Lawrence, who has all the capabilities in the world to be part of Stevie Clarke's international team. He's out the picture because he's not getting a game for Celtic. He's dropped off the bench, I've noticed as well, in recent times. What does his future hold? Because he is one of the guys who hasn't signed a new deal. The season started off so well for him. Man of the match performance in the opener against Ross County, but very quickly dropped down the pecking order. What does the future hold for him, Lawrence?
I don't know, Celtic, if it's one of those contracts with a one-year option. The thing about him is he's league trained, isn't he?
Yes.
When Ange came in, he seemed to have when Ange first came in, seemed to do really well under him as well. And I think he'll move on, but it's going to leave us a problem for next year's European squad. Unless we find a way of developing our own players, or someone in Scotland that we think are Scottish League trained that we can sign to make up a quota, that'll leave us a problem. But he seems to be sinking without trace just now, Turnbull. And after such a good start, it's a bit of a surprise. He thought maybe Brendan would come in and be able to develop him. Put it this way, if you put the same kind of improvement into Turnbull that he's put into Scales, you'd absolutely be raving about Turnbull, wouldn't you? But he seems to be so far away from the team just now. Maybe he's decided, maybe David Turnbull's decided he needs regular football. Maybe he's told Brendan he's not signing. Perhaps that's what's happened.
Well, I was looking at the bench and the makeup of that, thinking to myself that, Bernabei wasn't on the bench at the weekend, was he? But then I was thinking, well, we've got an option for centre-half, therefore Scales could move on to the left. And I think Rodgers was maybe looking at more in terms of that, the personnel side of things, Liam, rather than you've annoyed me because we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But Turnbull has dropped off the radar a wee bit. And, as I say, I'm a huge fan of him, but I'm now starting to worry whether or not he has a future. I know what Lawrence is saying about the homegrown rule, that these players are, at the moment, they're like gold nuggets for Celtic. But we're not just going to keep them to fulfil that quota if they're not playing.
No, I mean, hindsight is 2020, but looking back on the beginning of the season, I think that Brendan Rodgers' post-match comments were quite telling. When Rio Hatate was injured and not playing, Rodgers was keen to emphasise how much of a quality player he was and how he will be an important part of the squad. When he was asked about Turnbull's performance, I think he'd scored a goal or two in whatever game it was, and he said, "Are you gonna? Is he going to be the next guy to get an extension to his contract?" And Rodgers was just like, "Well, if he continues this level of performance, maybe." He was very wishy-washy about it,
non-committal, absolutely.
Said to me, he doesn't rate this guy, but he's not going to throw him under the bus because, as injuries are at that moment in time, he needed them. Now, with Hatate back, Turnbull is not a first choice pick anymore, and I think that he will just be quietly moved out the door, possibly in January, but more likely in the summer, I think. And for the sake of his Scotland career, he needs to, because chances are Scotland are going to a Euros, and if he's going to have any hope of getting in that squad, he needs to be playing every week. Because I still believe he's good enough to play for Scotland. I don't know if he's quite good enough to play in the Champions League for Celtic, but he's definitely good enough to be part of a Scotland squad.
And at his age, he needs to be playing. He played a hell of a lot of football before he came to Celtic as a young man. He needs to be playing regular football. If he's not going to do that, his international career will suffer. Will he follow the path of the likes of Ferguson and Doig and go over to Italy and maybe push his agent to get a move over there? Would that suit him a wee bit better than where he is just now? I thought he had a very good pre-season and he was deserving of his start in the Ross County game. But I did notice that after the game. I'm not sure, were you covering the game with me that day, Liam? And Brendan Rodgers, I did notice that. He was very non-committal when he was asked the question. Brown Warrior, welcome back to the show. If you want to, excuse me, getting so excited, I'm starting to hiccup here. That normally only happens when you laugh. Right, Brown Warrior is commenting on YouTube. If you want to get involved in the chat, what's your thoughts on David Turnbull, Liam Scales, Cameron Carter Vickers, and everything else we've been speaking about today? Just subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then you can make a comment. Brown Warrior, a blind man could see the quality Callum McGregor had. Never hid, always comfortable on the ball, and good technical ability. Smashed it at Notts County. No, I think that he did. And he's spoken about that loan move, hasn't he? He wrote about it in his book. He spoke about it since. He's talking about it being an example for young players to look at who are going out on loan, who are maybe feeling as though it's a step away from playing for Celtic. And he's saying, no, it doesn't have to be. Look at me as an example. But there was definitely talk of a move away from Celtic prior to him kicking a competitive ball for the club. And it came down to that thing that Lawrence was talking about earlier. The club couldn't come up with an extra 50 or 100 grand or something, and he stayed put.
Carlisle?
It was Carlisle, yeah. And he stayed put, and Ronnie Dyler gave him his chance. And I think in that first season he looked raw, but there was enough in there to suggest he was going to be a player. I think he was given his opportunity by Dyler. He improved immeasurably under Rodgers' first time round.
Is Ronnie the last manager to really give youth their opportunity?
I think he's got a track record, doesn't he? When you look at it and you think Kieran Tierney et al. And yeah, he was someone who believed in youth. It was unfortunate that Ronnie Dyler was in the position that he was in, because I always felt that he would have been brilliant for our academy, but obviously he's at a stage now where that's not going to happen. David McGowan, hiya Acsom. It's dreaking wet and windy in Drumchapel. Can give me a shout out. Hail, hail, you'll never walk alone. Come on, you boys in green. Love the show, Acsom boys. Well, if you're going to ask like that, David, of course we're going to give you a shout out. And is this turning into a weather report? We would need to change it to AWSOM, which spells awesome. That's one of mine. You can use it as you please, Liam. But there's a couple of wee shout outs here, actually. And I'm always keen to shout out to people who talk to us on social media. Paul McKeown sent out a wee picture of himself on a hospital bed, just back from the Asian Games 2022 in China. Didn't go exactly to plan, but the treatment I received by everyone there was second to none. Now to catch up on the podcast. So he put that out today. He gave a tag to ourselves and Celtic Down Under. So hopefully you are listening to us, Paul, and you get well soon, my friends. So if you've already, if you came in late and you've not heard the news, we have just announced today that Neil Lennon will be playing for the Celtic Select. Who else? Who else have I announced, Lawrence? Who are you aware of? Because I've got to watch. I've got a wee list. Yep, Tommy Johnson. Yep. Johnny
Gould, Joe Miller, Rudy Vata. Mark is obviously going to be in the hospitality.
Johnny Gould's not been announced, and thankfully he's not going to be announced. But that would have been a wee one of the moments. Yeah,
I'm guessing. I'm trying to think who would be playing.
Right. I'm going to go through the ones that I've announced.
A boy from some band.
A boy from some band. There's a couple actually. Right. We've got Bobby Petta, John Hughes, Rudy Vata. We've got Paul Byrne coming over from Ireland. We have James Allen from Las Vegas. We've got Joe Miller, Tommy Johnston, who was Tommy Burns' last signing, I think I'm right in saying.
Yep.
Scott McDonald. A lot of fans posted pictures of Scott over at Celtic Park
TJ
over the
against
weekend.
Win the league, didn't
he? TJ, he did, yeah, to win the league in the treble winning season. Yeah. Andy Payton, he's coming up. Saul Davis from the band James.
That's the boy.
That's the boy. We've got Neil Lennon, of course. We've got Frank McAvenny looking after the hospitality. There's a name with a big green tick on it that I'm not allowed to say. I'm sworn to secrecy. I cannot say his name. I better scroll past that. And then we've got the management team, which is John Clark, Lisbon Lion, Jim Simonetti, Willie Hockey, Tommy McIntyre. And there's loads more on that list that I'm going to be announcing as the days go on. As you can maybe tell, I'm absolutely buzzing about that fact. And I cannot wait for the game to happen. It's been a long time coming. Fair play to the likes of Jim Simonetti at the Jimmy Johnston Academy, to Stevie Mullen at St. Roch's, erstwhile member of the Acsom team. These guys have been working since 2019, plus the St. Roch's committee, of course, up at the club. 2019, the planning for this game has been going on since. So, honestly, on Sunday, I'll be so chuffed for them. And it'll be great to see some of the ex-Celts back in the Celtic kit, as yet unannounced. Here we go. Paul DB, Maeda injured. Fill us in, Liam. What's the story with Maeda?
I don't know the exact nature of the injury because I only found out myself when you told me about it. So, but as I said, from what I've read, it was a squad withdrawal simply due to precautionary measures. It's worst case scenario, will be out for a week or two, so I wouldn't worry too much.
Right.
Going back to the St. Roch's game for a minute, I've got to ask, when are you going to announce Terry Hurlock? Has that one been out yet?
Terry Hurlock, there's a wee blast from the past. Remember him? With the Brian May hairdo and all that kind of stuff.
The unacceptable face of Scottish football.
That's right. A hammer thrower if ever saw one. AR Johnny Gould, the third Mitchell brother. See what you've done, Lawrence. You've started gossip. You've started a rumour.
I remember when Johnny was playing for Celtic. That you remember Danny Craney?
Yes.
Through the same time as Nicholas, he was managing the fives up in East Kilbride. So he used to go up to play the fives and sevens parts up there. He used to go up there. And Gouldy would hire out a sevens part and get his mate to come in and take shots of him in the evening. So he's training himself today and he's out training at night doing extra training. It's just fun. dedication. But mate, there's a boy, you know, he tells the stories, mate, from he was going to Stalybridge Celtic, didn't he? And not to us, but what a sign he turned out to be. Huge for that team, wasn't he?
He did. I mean, he was a Bradford. He wasn't even getting a game for the reserves at the time when he signed for Celtic. Yeah. And he was a part of the team that, you know, stopped the 10, of course. And there was an important save, I always remember, in the game against St Johnstone where Henrik's first goal? He scores the flying header against St Johnstone up at McDermott. There was a header in the first 10 minutes by George O'Boyle. And the save, and you know how sometimes we talk about moments that might not be on the end of season highlights DVD. That was one of those moments. It was so important at that time, and obviously, you know, we look back fondly on Johnny Gould, and if he had been playing, Lawrence had just let the cat out of the bag. But the goalkeeper is actually Scott Fox. Tony's. He's not coming up either.
He can't make it either.
He can't make it either. Neither can Dimitri Karin, if we're talking about obscure footballers that played with Celtic. But yeah, Jerry Taylor is obviously the other goalkeeper, our very own Jerry. He's going to be playing as well. I want to talk about, we've spoken about Maeda, Liam. Let's have a wee chat about Hattati and Kyogo. Let's spend a few moments on these two guys. We'll start off with Kyogo. So he breaks his duck. You've not been on Acsom since prior to the Lazio game. He breaks his Champions League duck. What a goal, by the way. Unbelievable worked goal. And then, was he disappointing at the weekend? I don't know. He could have had a penalty if they would allowed us to take it. He could have scored a goal if it hadn't been chopped off. On another day, he could have scored a hat-trick, so I'm not concerned about that. But he is playing a different role to the one he played under Ange. I don't think, I said this yesterday, I don't think he's going to have the 30 goal a season. But that doesn't mean to say he's not having as good a season, does it?
No, and I always think it's better for the team at large if the goals are spread out. Because if one guy gets injured, you're not suddenly thinking, oh no, there's our main man out the team. You know, Matt O'Reilly's coming in as a goal scorer. Mm-hmm. Daizen is always capable of doing something. You know, when Abada's back, he'll be a goal threat. You know, Hattati showed at the weekend that, well, you know, he's Hattati and he can do that. Even Alistair Johnson and Greg Taylor were getting up and having shots at goal at the weekend. So, you know, we have the potential for goals from all over the park, literally.
Yeah.
So I think that is great. And if a side effect of that is that Kyogo ends the season with 20 goals instead of 30, so be it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think that it's important to note it doesn't really say that it's been an unsuccessful season because he is playing a slightly different role. See what you've started, Lawrence. We're now getting suggestions as to other players who should be playing in this game. Give me your comment. Let us know in the comments. Who would you like to see playing for Celtic on Sunday? Don't use the name that shall not be named on this podcast. Do not utter it. I've already seen it in the comment section.
Like Charlie, I guess, mate.
Chick can't make it. Chick can't make it. We did ask him. McAvenny in charge of hospitality. Did you say Cantona?
Cantona.
Oh, all right. No, he's got a bad knee. McAvenny is in charge of. Yeah, he is. Thomas. It's a great idea, isn't it? He says he is happy to mingle. Say no more. Mark Viduka and Evander Snow. I don't think either of them are going to be coming to play on Sunday. But let us know. Who do you think? The one that we were so close to getting was Scott Brown. Scott Brown, there's a message. There's a message where he agrees to play, right? And let's just say it was 18:59 on the WhatsApp. He agrees to play. And the second message that comes in is still 18:59, where he remembers that he's playing in the Davy Gray testimonial at Easter Road. So he did agree. He did agree. Robert, you're right. Jerry is ready to step in. He is in training as we speak, and he is going to be the goalie as well. Studs Lanigan, Big Rab. I think there's an issue with the fact that he's still registered as a player, Studs, because he was asked. Otherwise, he'd have been a brilliant addition to the team.
I think it's his dog's birthday today, or yesterday, mate, Big Rabs.
His dog?
Yeah, I think it's his dog's birthday.
See the amount of random facts on this show is phenomenal. Rab Douglas's birthday, Doug's birthday today, brilliant.
Oh, one of his dogs, he's got a few.
Is he? I want to talk to you, following on from what Liam said, Lawrence, I want to talk to you about Hattati, the brilliance of Hattati, the fact that his season hasn't gone as we would probably have expected. I tipped him at the beginning of last season to be Celtic's Player of the Year. I think he almost got there. This season, I said he was going to be one of the guys that Brendan Rodgers could work his magic on. We've seen a bit of that at the weekend, thankfully, didn't we?
Oh, definitely. Listen, the team's improving game in game. So, but Hattati's, he was out of the team. He'll take a wee bit to get back to speed, but what a drive back. What a goal. And Brendan spoke about sitting down and going over his game with him, where he needs to improve. Hattati's already on record, under Ange, saying, he's always looking to improve his game. He'll try and take everything on board to reach the highest level. And if he keeps going like he is just now under Brendan, he won't be here for long, which is, it's enjoying while he's here. He does look top class, top drawer when he does stuff like that, isn't he? He
does. I've said before, Lawrence, he's a guy that there's certain things that only he can do. There's players like that in a team that there's game-changing moments, be it a pass or that bit of skill, or even the way that he created the space. That's not been spoken about enough. After he's away from that player, he's still got to create the space to have the shot. Yeah. And it's all about the
understanding the offside rule.
Yeah. I don't think that was deliberate. I'm pretty sure that was a ricochet. Stephen Murray, the save goal they made at Aberdeen 98 season kept the 1-0 win. I think he's a bit of an unsung hero of that team. And as Lon said, when I pitched that to wee Jackie, he says that, when we heard he was signing for Celtic, everybody thought it was Stalybridge Celtic. It tells you what the players think. Ridiculizer, I'm bringing this up. Once the AI algorithms really take over with the stats, football will become a very stale, predictable product with each attribute meticulously logged into a matrix of obvious outcomes. True, but then you get players who can do the unexpected, like Hattati, and you can just tear the matrix and algorithm up. What I found really interesting, I'm not sure if it was you that was telling me, Liam, is that they're working on something whereby the AI will allow you to switch on automatic voice recognition, which translates, for example, my voice into any other language. So you can listen to me speaking Japanese throughout the Acsom episode. Was it you that was telling me that?
I mean, well, I don't know if it was me that was telling you that, but I do know about that. We actually, when my wife and I went to Scotland last Christmas, we used a more primitive version of that. She had like a wee kind of a handheld, looked like a wee sort of a mic, and she spoke into it, and then it spat out English. And then my dad would reply, and it would spit out Japanese to her. So took a bit of pressure off me as a translator, but it wasn't perfect, but it was an interesting thing, and we are going to get there eventually.
Just to got your dad's Scottish accent's impressive alone. I don't know if it usually is. I know when I'm in the car and it's meant to be voice activated, you speak to it, and it just does it.
I used to have a sat nav that spoke to me in the voice of Joe Pesci when he played in Goodfellas. So you can imagine driving about what he was saying to us. The expletives were in there as well.
It would have been better if it had been, don't go to the drive-through.
Sorry, that's went right over my head.
Leo wants, Leo gets. That would have been much better for.
Right over my napper. Sorry.
Mate, you don't know what he wants, Leo gets.
I've not got a clue what you're talking about, Lawrence. Will McMillan, Bobo. Imagine we could get the big guy. Wow. He won't be playing, but we'll keep that in mind, Will. And John Sweeney, Big Sammy, would have been great. He would. I loved Big Samaras. Absolutely loved the big man. And has he been back? I've never seen him back at Celtic for a game, for a function. John Collins, watch this space. Not for Sunday, Paul, but watch this space. Stevie Mullen, Chick has agreed to play.
Heard it here first, mate.
Hey, there we go.
Obviously heard me say.
It has.
Listening to the show, he's got straight on the phone to Stevie and said,
Public opinion.
I remember having a pint with Lawrence and the squirrel. He wants to see me play. I'm in.
The squirrel.
Please tell me we're not talking about Chick Young here. Please tell me.
You know it's Chick. You know it's Chick Charnley because he spells his name chic, right?
Yeah.
So there you go. Darren Jackson, Patrick, has retired not just from professional football but also from the bounce game. So we did ask Darren Jackson, but he is unable to play through some type of injury. Gordon Strachan, Danny. Won't be coming along, I don't think, unless wee Saul Davis brings him, because I know that Gordon loves the band James. So there you go. There's a connection. Pat Nevin available, says Urban Culture. You've been a little bit naughty there. I don't think Pat would be playing in the Gangad. However, there are going to be
song sheets, though.
Yeah, well, do you think so? Kenny Miller, evil chuckle indeed, Mikey boy. No, he wasn't asked, surprisingly enough. We've got to be Henrik, can you imagine? I'll tell you what, there are some brilliant big names. But again, I must stress the work that's been done here by The Rock and by guys like Stevie Millen, who was in the comment section, is off the scale. You'll never understand the amount of hours that has gone into this game behind the scenes. And I'm not including myself in that. I'm talking about The Rock, the committee, Stevie Millen, Jim Simonetti, all these guys. It's going to be a great day, and I'm really looking forward to it as well. So thanks everybody for getting involved in the comments. I know that we digressed a wee bit on that show there, but that's what it's all about. Lawrence and I had a wee disagreement. Who's going to be proved right? Who knows? But I know that, Lawrence, if you're proved wrong about it, you'll be happy.
Oh, undoubtedly, mate. You know, they'd say it's a fortune, you know, with a top-class centre-half that can take us to the last 16. That'd be amazing. But before we go, mate, what about Fran's girls? What about the girls? Shane Mendley on again.
Yes.
Top of the league.
We were talking about the result yesterday. I mean, the running form has been phenomenal. And I was talking about the different connections, Lawrence. Tyree Burchell, obviously the daughter of Mark. Amy Gallagher, great-granddaughter of Patsy. And it was pointed out to me by Stevie again, Chloe Craig, Albert Craig's, is it daughter or granddaughter? I'm pretty sure someone in the comments will let me know. But there you go. It just shows you. And I think that what's important there is, let's say you've got a couple of kids, a wee boy, a wee girl. You always say, I would love my boy to play for Celtic. Now you can just say, I'd love my kids to play for Celtic. It's
what a header she scored away. Chloe Craig.
Aye. And I think the
all three scored. All three scored because there's Amy Gallagher on 10 receiving, Tyree Burchell on 9 or something.
Fair play. If she's got anything like the scoring boots of her father. By the way, Mark Burchell again would have played, but he's injured at the moment. So great squad, great crowd, great club. It's going to be a great occasion. But yeah, I think the biggest concern about the Celtic women, Lawrence, was the fact that we'd lost some real stars at the beginning of the season, but we have continued to develop under Fran Alonso.
Yeah, I mean, keeps finding. I mean, Kit up top, Kit Leversky, cracking signing. Obviously, Chloe Kavanagh coming back to the right side of the city has helped. And honestly, Shed Mendley, she's got to set up 3 or 4 goals a game. She's absolutely outstanding. Outstanding.
Urban Culture, this is a good point. Anyone who doesn't get a ticket is welcome at the Rock for the rest of the season. I think it is important to say that, you know, you do a game like this, it gets that exposure and there's that intense exposure for a period. But hopefully that can continue and they will get a bit of a kickback on season ticket sales, people just checking out the Rock up at James McGrory Park. Thank you once again, every single one of you, for getting involved. We are in the battle for a couple of awards at the moment, and I think the closing date is actually Sunday night, midnight Sunday night. So if you want to give us a vote, we're up for the best club content creator international and the best podcast international. The link is underneath this particular video as well. Sorry, Lawrence, were you going to chip in there?
Before we go, I bumped into the World One-Handed Golf Championships down at the Peter Scarf Club.
All right.
Friday night, Cian Arthurs was over from Ireland. He was doing a half-time draw.
Brilliant.
So big fan of Acsom, mate. So
is he?
Yes.
Nice one. Big shout out to the club, and also was it Liam McGrandles was there? Was that right? Jim Craig,
Liam was there. Yeah. So I had Liam and Jim Craig at Peter Scarf on Friday, and then on Saturday night up at St Monica's in Coatbridge with Jim Craig again at Atlante.
That's the term. We never stop. Thank you, everybody, for getting involved, and thank you, Liam Carrigan and Lawrence Connolly, for joining me on a Celtic State.